I'm having flashbacks to my childhood. What? I didn't actually know he did that. Generic intro into that goes. We heard back with another Game Theory FNAF video. Today we're doing more of the ultimate timeline with the Rise of Afton, which is going to be the part 2 of the ultimate timeline. You want to check out last week's video, which was the part 1, the start of the ultimate timeline, which I think he broke down into 4 parts. You can check reaction to that video. I'll leave it right up there. Also, linked down below in the description. Also, a place on my channel with all the other FNAF Game Theory reactions. Going in chronological order, I've still only ever played the first FNAF game, and I believe Sister Location, which I played with my girlfriend. Linked down below in the description. That video is a VOD that I played on my birthday on the gaming channel and whatnot. Someone just connected to my internet. That's weird. I'm guessing my girlfriend just connected her iPad to my Wi-Fi and she can hear me right now. I just heard her laugh. But thank you so much for being here. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Shout out to the patrons because they get videos there early. A lot of times I have a paywall channel. Could not do this if it was not for them. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Hopefully I can make your time a little better. But like I said, I do read all your comments whether you're a patron or not. I hope you're subscribed as we have now over 80,000 subscribers on the channel, which are approaching that 100,000 mark, which is just a huge milestone that I guess I have a place to put a plaque because new green screen behind me. But this is going to be the Rise of Afton. It's a lot longer of a video, but let's go ahead and jump on into the Rise of Afton. I feel like I said Afton about 7 times on the intro, and I'm losing my mind.
Welcome to Game Theory, and officially page 7 of the FNAF timeline script. Last time we covered the origins of Freddy's. We talked about William Afton's childhood dream project of making a singing bear come to life, and the infuriating moment that his dream is copied by a rival restaurant franchise looking to steal away his success. The merger of the 2 franchises results in William meeting Henry, a brilliant designer with a knack for robotics. Working together, they make Fredbear's flourish, spawning popular Saturday morning cartoon shows, toy lines, and spin-off restaurants under the Fazbear name. When last we left him, Afton was thriving, the world of robotics opening his eyes to new and exciting ways of bringing characters to life. Bringing things to life. Yeah, that was his core driving force, his passion. And it was this very passion.
Are we going to talk about the books?
Twist, and
I think the first video was completely correct.
Because with life, there is inevitably death. Something that Afton would become intimately familiar with. But before Afton acquaints himself with death, I want you to take some time to acquaint yourself with our newest channel.
Which is
Guys, this is a huge moment for us theorists. For the last decade, we've had this 4-player controller icon, and now
is always the
plan.
plan.
Fill in the final missing piece. Get ready
is it
for
film
the
theorist?
Of our newest
or maybe not.
Channel.
Or it's not food, is it?
Please.
I know there's food theory.
Style theory.
Oh, it's
we're
that
looking
one.
at the science, math, psychology, history, and mystery of the way you look, your clothing, fashion trends.
Oh no, not the mischief red boots. Wait, how recent is it?
Style might sound weird at
7 months ago.
Hear
Was
me out.
really, I think 7 months
not
ago.
understanding style or fashion at all. Admittedly,
I wasn't allowed to have a fashion sense until I was
that style
20,
has over
thanks
your
to my
life and how
girlfriend.
the world treats you. But over time, by educating myself on the ins and outs of the fashion industry, I was better able to achieve my true self and find my own sense of personal style. And that right there, that builds confidence. The way that you look directly affects the way that you feel.
That's 100% true.
People treat you. So understanding those rules and being able to take
I wonder if I should watch any of those videos. Maybe I can learn things. Why is the thumb 2 colors?
It's an educational curve. And what do we do on these channels? We like to educate you while entertaining you, which honestly is why I think this channel is so important.
That's not a weird 4th channel. I guess it's just trying to. Oh, there's Loki.
That there needs to be someone out there to say, hey, this is right, this is wrong, and this is what science says. Also, you know, we're gonna have a lot of fun because talking about fashion
it's also
weird.
all
like this channel has already given me the excuse to bludgeon a ballistic head to death using a high heel. It's also the channel where we're gonna physically be testing the viability of female armor, or how many t-shirts it takes to stop a bullet. There's also
it depends on the bullet. I don't know how many things you're gonna need for
benefit the students. Does it make a
no,
difference
it does not.
Whether or not you wash your legs
5'7"
in
by
the shower?
28.
That's the sort
Wash
of
your
stuff
legs.
you can find
What?
on this new channel.
You should wash your legs in the shower.
New episodes that you can check out right after you finish this beast of an
pants?
upload.
Wow.
I personally recommend starting with the Killer Heel episode because this episode's all about the birth of a killer. And while you're over there, consider subscribing. It'll
that
do
channel
all
probably
of
has
us
a ton
over
of
here
subscribers
a huge
already.
favor, because if we manage to get 1 million subscribers by the end of the month, it'll put us as a top fashion channel here on YouTube. Show the world that looking smart.
I don't think you need to hit 1 million to do that, but
so go ahead,
I guess
all-day theory.
I'm trying to hit 100,000 for the end of the year. I'm like a little less than 20,000 away. It's
onward to part
probably
2,
not gonna happen, but it'd be an amazing surprise. I do all this myself.
1983,
I've also managed to move
was booming with 2 whole restaurant franchises
while
running.
not missing
Fredbear's Family
uploads.
Diner and the newly opened Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Together, William and Henry had been able to take the hybrid suit idea and make it into a reality. They called their new invention the Springlock suit, and fittingly enough, it was symbolic of the partnership between these two men. A human suit as designed by William that could become a freestanding Henry-style robot. But because it was still new tech with kinks to work out, the rollout was limited, restricted only to the Fredbear's Family Diner location. All of this meant that William was busier than ever. He didn't have time to be a full-time parent, so he designed a nanny cam system where cameras and speakers were hidden throughout the neighborhood, as well as in his youngest son's favorite toy,
wait, that's like he could have just sold that technology.
I mean, plushy Fredbear. But since cameras just weren't enough to raise a kid,
like,
he also left childcare duties to his eldest son, Michael. There was just one problem with that. Michael was
an older brother.
The best babysitter. He tormented his younger brother by jump scaring him with a foxy mask and constantly left him behind.
Flashbacks to my childhood.
Watched all of it from his cameras. Kids would
and did nothing about it.
Tomorrow was another day, after all. Except Michael's torment didn't stop. Bitter, angry.
It's so nice having a bedroom door now.
Michael's mind. Why did he have to be the one to take care of this whining crybaby all the time? It just wasn't fair. It was time that he got even with his brother by playing the ultimate prank. A prank that just so happened to be on this crying child's birthday. He and his friends would take his scared little brother and make him do the one thing that he was terrified of doing, getting close to the animatronics.
And get chomped.
That would be embarrassing for the kid that was such an embarrassment to him. His brother squirmed, screamed, kicked, and fought, but just as they were putting that small, squirming boy up to Fredbear's lips, the mouth snapped shut. The sensitive spring locks inside the body had been triggered by the boy's movements, and they'd immediately clamped down. The wriggling stopped. The boy went limp, but it was just a prank. It was meant to be
just a prank.
The boy was taken to the hospital and was immediately given an IV. Flowers and pills filled the nightstand next to his hospital bed, but the damage was
I don't think it'd just leave the pills there.
As the younger brother's consciousness began to fade, he could hear Michael's last words, a small and flimsy apology. But his father, Williams, through the voice of the Fredbear plush,
he still wasn't there.
Committed promise to a dying son. You're broken. I will put you back together. This would not be the end.
Which is very true.
No matter what, William's son would live again. It would just take time. Time that, right now, he just didn't have. His young son's heart flatlined as the boy faded into the inky unknown of the afterlife. In the aftermath of the tragedy, changes started happening around the restaurants. Kids were now required to wear security wristbands to prevent anyone from getting outside without parental permission.
I'm not sure how that would prevent
exit without
spring lock
permission would have to answer to the security puppet. A marionette on strings that could fly around on rails across the restaurant to stop kids in their tracks.
That sounds
Williams'
like
idea,
danger.
inspired by Michael constantly leaving the restaurant without his brother. In the wake of Fredbear's spring lock failure, all the hybrid suits were getting retired, locked away at the nearby Freddy Fazbear location. It was yet another tough pill to swallow after all the hard work that he and Henry had put into them.
They're good
William
at
would
murdering.
eventually bury the boy's small body in a remote location out in the woods right alongside his drive into and out of work every day. The death of this little boy sent the family spiraling. His wife, crippled with grief, was so distraught that all she could do was sit and watch TV. But his son Michael was far worse, complaining of seeing hallucinations of a golden bear standing outside of his window. The boy was so racked with guilt, he was convinced that he was being haunted by the ghost of his brother.
Well, maybe it's because you did something wrong.
The suit's three-toed feet digging into the wet earth. The words "It's me" ringing through Michael's ears. Some nights, Michael would even go so far as to break out of his room to check the gravesite and ensure that his brother was still there. As for William himself, he disappeared into his work and his drinks. Junior's, the local bar, wasn't far from his son's gravesite. He found himself going there more and more frequently, spending longer and longer amounts of time there. The bar gave him a place to think, to remember, to reflect,
to do other things.
Stew on how Henry had stolen his idea for an animal-themed restaurant. How they'd cut his character out of the cartoon when everyone else was there. How Henry had humiliated him by buying him out of bankruptcy. And now there was his son. Henry had taken his son from him. The robotic part was the part that failed after all. William ordered one more drink, but it was one too many. The bar turned him out and told him to go home. But William didn't go home. Drunk and angry, William raced back to the restaurant to give Henry a piece of his mind. Only to find someone else waiting. Henry's daughter, Charlie, locked
but it looks like a beetle.
Bullies laughing at her through the window. Fine,
that's
some
why
other
I like
problem to fix. But then Afton got an idea. A beautifully awful idea. This was his chance to get back at the man that had humiliated him all those years ago. Henry had killed his business, and now Henry's robotic suit had killed his son. It was time for William to do some killing of his own. Let Henry feel what it's like to have something you love get ripped away. While parties continued inside the walls of the pizzeria, William attacked Charlie in the back alley. It felt good. He felt 1983, the years of resentment
and revenge is not the best medicine.
Released in a moment of pure unapologetic evil. He would make Henry hurt like he hurts. And in that moment, William became a killer. He dropped Charlie's lifeless body and drove home, forced to confront his family problems later that night. Appalled, but also a little excited by what he had just done.
Are there
Charlie's
no legal
death would
repercussions?
remain on the books as a random act of violence. And though
Really?
Henry had
A child?
suspicions about William, there was no physical evidence. Nothing that could link him back to the crime. In the weeks that followed, Fredbear's family diner would close for good. 2 high-profile deaths around the restaurant with 2 grieving owners in such a short period of time was just too much bad press to handle.
Exactly.
Besides,
It's so
Freddy
obvious that
Fazbear's
something
was
bad
still
happened.
open, and it was the newer restaurant anyway. All the equipment from the diner, including the old yellow suits and security puppet, would get retired to that location. And there they would sit for 2 uneventful years. The rest of 1983 and 1984 were spent quietly grieving. Freddy Fazbear's Pizza and the new cast of characters were a hit. Tragic memories of their yellow predecessors quickly faded. Afton kept a low profile and buried himself in work and research, quickly reaching Henry's level of engineering.
He got a little taste of blood.
And while Henry slowed down to grieve, Afton kept going, even starting his own company, Afton Robotics, for all those pet projects that were a little bit too experimental for the regular operations of the pizzeria. The first of these experimental projects was a secret workshop under his house, a veritable bunker, which allowed him to work while still monitoring his kids via hidden security cameras. 1983. A passcode that served as a constant reminder of why the cameras were so important, why he was down there.
Is that this location?
This was all to fulfill the promise that he had made to his son.
I don't know. I played this location. It's linked in the description.
This was for him. All for him. Right? But cameras weren't enough. He needed to solve the runaway Michael problem. He had to keep him in the house. He couldn't have another one of his kids wind up dead inside of an animatronic suit. So why not run a little experiment on Michael? You see, all this work with Henry had gotten Afton to start learning more about life, robots, the human mind, and what a
agony
machine
and
we as humans
all that stuff.
Our reality is so easy to manipulate with a few sensory deceptions.
Adding
like
souls to metal.
With just a few sounds, he had discovered that he could alter a person's vision. He could transform blank, smooth plastic robots into lumbering, twisted nightmares. Nightmares far scarier than he could create with actual materials.
Yeah.
They would appear organic,
literally using the human imagination against itself.
These would be his means of keeping his son Michael in the house where he belonged. Was it extreme? Maybe. But then again, this was the boy who had killed his son. He would make him sorry. And so Michael would grow up not only dealing with the memories of his own guilt, the hospital room, the pills, the flowers, the death of his brother, but also facing literal nightmares. Illusions created by sound. Michael would never forget these either. Years later, as a security guard, he would still draw pictures of them inside of his logbook. But all of these extra projects meant that his home life suffered even more. He was an absent father and a non-existent husband, leaving his wife cold and alone.
Why do you hide inside?
Well, all she did was sit there and watch TV.
When there is music in my house, all I see is an empty room. No more joy, an empty tomb.
Well, she sounds depressed.
And despite her repeated demands that he leave his office and engage with the family, he refused time and time again, leaving her no choice but to leave.
You burned down my house?
You call that a house? It was like a morgue in there. You need
Yikes.
to see your son.
The baby isn't mine.
Well, how's this? I'm keeping the diamond ring.
And through it all, there was one lingering feeling. William wasn't done. He had gotten a taste of what it felt like to be unleashed, what it felt like to be free. Charlie's murder had unlocked something in him, and he wanted more. June 26th, 1985.
A little taste of
putting on
blood.
the golden bodysuit, he
Serial
lured the
murderer
children
now.
one by one to the back room of the pizzeria when no one was looking. At first, he was cautious. He would lure them with promises of cake and cookies. He told them that their dog had died. He would ask for help with homework. Susie was the first. You never truly forget your first.
That voice, I don't like how sharp it is.
Sneak out, someone would see him. He had to hide them in a place where they'd never be found, and
Inside
where
the
they'd never
suits.
leave the building. They had to be stuffed inside of the suits. No one maintained those things anyway, except for him. And so Susie
Yeah, so nobody
would
else would
go
know. I
into
guess they would just
Chica.
smell.
Fritz, Jeremy, and Gabriel would come next, but it was easy. It was too easy. And with each little life he snuffed out, his lies got bigger. Their
So
house
how
was
did they,
burning.
like-
They're just being kidnapped. kidnapped, until the last one where all pretense was off. He let himself get violent. Too violent.
I'll just wait for him after school, throw a bag over his head, hit him with a shovel, and drag him into the back of my car.
We were way too excited about that.
Far more bloody and broken than any of the others. He'd let himself go too far. That one he shouldn't have killed. With no more active animatronics left, he shoved the body into the one suit that remained backstage. The long-forgotten yellow Fredbear, now broken and discolored with age. Broken, like Cassidy was broken, like his son was broken. Newspapers reported on this disappearance, naming the whole thing the missing children.
At Freddy
Police would even charge William with the crimes after finding security footage of the golden mascot suit luring kids to the back, but they couldn't convict him. They couldn't convict him. His face had been hidden behind the mascot suit the entire time. What they had was circumstantial at best, and so he walked away a free man. But Henry,
they did a terrible investigation.
In these murders, he saw his daughter Charlie all
have a
over
good lawyer.
again. So he threw Afton out of the company and shuttered the doors to the old pizzeria. Henry would keep the franchise quiet for 2 years. This would not happen again. This could not happen again. How could he protect the kids? Finally, he developed a solution. He would implement an even more extreme security system in the form of new animatronics, toy animatronics, inspired by the toys that they had been selling years ago. But these guys, these were special. They were a new breed of robot with facial recognition abilities.
Yeah, protect the kids.
Importantly, they're all tied into some kind of criminal database, so they can detect a predator a mile away.
All the original animatronics,
is that what they just say Afton is?
Were moved to the new location.
Or maybe it's just because they're like, oh, there's a predator that's killing children.
The year was 1987, and the new and improved Freddy Fazbear's Pizza was making headlines in local newspapers. Headlines that just so happened to catch the attention of William Afton. Freddy's was back, and without him, that was his idea, his character. Henry was, yet again, trying to cut him out of the picture.
Well, you
as long as these restaurants stayed open, William would always come back. Then he noticed the phone number to apply at the bottom of the article. $100 a week to apply. Call.
$100.50. You could buy a house with 50 cents back in the day.
He would
Maybe
go
not
back
that
to
crazy.
the one place that they would least suspect him, a lowly day shift security guard. And there it was, buried in the back of parts and services, mixed in with the old withered animatronics, was the golden rabbit. With the yellow security badge still on his chest, he used his crank to pull open the spring locks. It was time for Bonnie to give an encore performance.
Someone used one of the suits. We had a spare in the back, a yellow one. Someone used it. Now none of them are acting right.
None of them.
I understand the building is on lockdown. No one is allowed in or out, you know.
You know? No, I don't.
Previous employees. When we get it all sorted out, we may move you to the day shift.
Oh, that sounds lovely.
Just became available.
1987, 5 more kids. He didn't know what felt better, getting back into the suit after 2 long years of waiting, or knowing how devastating this would be to Henry the next morning.
So then he's just sabotaging the business.
This time just meant more blood on Henry's hands.
And nobody pins this on him.
Kids again. The restaurant had only been open for a few weeks, but William was sure that this would get it to close. Good. If he couldn't have Freddy's, no one would. Whenever a new pizzeria opened, he would be there. But as he sat in his bunker, something else started to linger in William's mind. He had seen something strange.
Justice system.
Old withered animatronics. They had been wandering around the building, spurred on by the puppet. It was almost like those old robots were trying to save the kids. Save them? They couldn't, obviously, but still, how were they moving? It was almost like they had been given life somehow. Did he have something to do with it?
Oh, and then they chase him, and then he gets spring locked.
A security guard getting bitten by one of the animatronics during the day shift. Was that bite meant for him? William's curiosity was stronger now than his bloodlust. He had to learn more, but how? There was no way he'd ever be able to get inside another Freddy's pizzeria. Heck, there was practically no way a Freddy's would ever open again. He needed to create something new, something brand new. He needed to create his own pizzeria.
Due to the massive success, and even more so the unfortunate closing of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, it was clear that the stage was set, no pun intended, for another contender in children's entertainment.
Circus Baby's Pizza World.
Yep, that's a thing.
This would be the place where he could continue his work. No longer just murdering, experimenting. He needed more kids, and he needed them alive. And knowing that he couldn't show his face on the restaurant floor, he needed a way of remotely capturing his victims and preserving them for his work.
So how did he hire people?
He designed a new breed of animatronic. Their endoskeletons fluid and flexible. He equipped them with sound lures that could mimic voices. They could isolate children. They could incapacitate and contain them with zero direct input from him. It was brilliant. He He was brilliant, far beyond the simple bars and wires of Henry's designs. And the characters he chose for this were uniquely his. His new roster wasn't going to be tainted by Henry's disgusting barnyard bird. Instead, it was back to his characters, his creations. Freddy, Bonnie, Foxy, as well as two special ones.
So that's why Chico was left out?
Laura was an homage to the woman who left him. Now she would never leave him again.
Baby.
The second, the titular baby, was designed with his baby in mind. Elizabeth, his youngest child. She would always be Daddy's
but I thought she
girl,
got
the one that listened to him, the one that obeyed until the day that she didn't.
Daddy, why won't you let me play with her?
Oh, well, then she did get scooped.
Pretty and shiny.
Scoop.
Didn't you make her just for me?
Don't you like how Michael didn't get one?
The day before Circus Baby's Pizza World opened, she disobeyed. She didn't listen. Left alone with Baby, she got too close. The animatronic ripped in half and swallowed her whole. A scared and confused child fading into eternal darkness. By the time Afton found her, it was too late. She was gone. He immediately canceled the launch of Circus Babies under the guise of a gas leak. But wait, as he sat there at the foot of the stage, he noticed that something was different. The eye color of the robot had changed. Baby had been built with blue eyes, but now green. They were emerald green, the same color as Elizabeth's. Was she in there? Could this all be connected to the free-moving animatronics that he had seen at Freddy's? He had to know more. His mourning turned to excitement.
So much curiosity. So much curiosity fueled by other people's blood.
This place was pathetic. Henry had clearly tried to reopen one final time with those old original animatronics from so long ago, but William's damage to the brand had been permanent. These things stank of death. They hadn't been washed in decades. But even if they had, nothing could wash away the stink of murder that haunted these halls. One night, then another, then another. William repeatedly snuck into the old broken restaurant to lure the living animatronics to him, one by one dismantling them, robbing them of their endoskeletons. The metal had to be the secret. It had to contain the remnants of life itself. But
the agony.
Know for sure. Leaping out of a room that was invisible to the animatronics programming, he dragged the oversized robotic skeletons back to his underground workshop, back to where Circus Baby watched on with glowing, curious eyes. Eyes that somehow felt alive. Not knowing what else to do, William melted the robotic parts down.
Shout out to Zachary H for following me on Instagram.
Skeletons reduced down to one silvery puddle of goo. Could he transfer this living metal to his own creations? He had to try. He picked up a syringe and filled it with the molten metal and injected the goo.
He's like, oh, I can make them, bring them to life.
Wiry endoskeleton. And suddenly the coils came to life. Like snakes writhing in a pile, what had once been cold, lifeless metal moved and jolted on its own. He'd done it. He
gave it life.
Unlocked the secret to life itself. Except something was clearly wrong. The movements
they're not
were
like life. They're just pain.
Baby didn't act this way. She had been calm, collected. This was clearly something else, something mindless and frantic. Perhaps by mixing the souls and then portioning them out, he had created incomplete beasts. He would need to keep testing to truly understand it. He needed more of this remnant. As he searched the old pizzeria one more time for any remaining scraps of metal, the ghosts attacked. His past victims come to collect their due. All
he jumps in
the five lined up and blocked the door, and Afton's mind reeled. The scientific implications of this were incredible. Ghosts,
seeing ghosts,
real ghosts that he could see.
Could they even do anything to him
against him? But what could they do? What could they do? He panicked as Cassidy approached. How do you stop something that's already dead? Maybe with the thing that resulted in their death in the first place. He would get into his suit like old times. He would regain his power over them just like the day that they died. He was the genius. He was the one in the suit. He was the one in charge.
And
spring lock snapped into place. Maybe it was his frantic movements. Maybe it was the leaky abandoned restaurant. Maybe it was just fate coming to collect its due. He didn't know. The only thing he did know was that his brain was suddenly filled with searing white-hot pain as hundreds of metallic pins and gears stabbed into his body from all sides. All he could do was collapse, blood slowly oozing out of the suit and pooling onto the floor around him. It couldn't end like this. It wouldn't end like this. His work was unfinished. Unable to move, his only option was to survive. To live, to keep living. It took days lying in his own blood, but eventually someone found him, a security guard making a normal report. When he saw the animatronics torn apart in the middle of the party room floor, it caused him to file an immediate report of a break-in. An owner would have to come in and claim the damage, and who else would it be other than Henry? Hope jumped in Afton's heart. Henry would see him. They were partners after all. He would be the one to help save him, to get him out of this suit, to relieve him from this tremendous pain. Henry entered the secret room. His eyes fell on Afton sitting there in the pool of red.
Did he know it was him?
Saying nothing, turned and walked away.
He just left him to die? I didn't actually know he did that. He sealed him away!
Nothing is being taken out beforehand, so if you left anything inside, then it's your own fault. Management also requests that this room not be mentioned to family, friends, insurance representative.
Insurance.
So there Afton would sit, hanging on for 30 years, trapped
30
behind
years
walls
what?
with an iron will that refused to die. End of this
That's
part.
kind of
I say
crazy.
this part because it's not officially the end of the Afton era just yet.
No,
but this just
not
felt
quite.
like a really solid stopping point, and the episode has gone on forever.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's a
so
long,
most
it's a
of
long
this
video.
is
It's a longer
things that we
video.
already knew.
I got
Stuff
longer
that's been
videos to record
established and
today.
reestablished
Not the
time
longest
and
video. I
time
just
again by the
recorded a Bricky
games. That
Warhammer
said,
video.
there are two things that I absolutely have to address. The first and biggest is the placement of sister location, or more specifically, Elizabeth's death. To me, evidence in game seems to suggest that it was meant to come before the crying child's death in 1983. The biggest clue to this is that the crying child saw something. Remember what you saw is the phrase
What?
that's
I don't know what
repeated
the crying
over
child
and
saw.
over again by psychic friend Fredbear, aka William Afton speaking through a walkie-talkie in the Fredbear plushie's stomach. But what did he see? Well, I think we can tell based on how the nightmare animatronics are visualized. They have mouths in their stomachs, just like Baby ripping in half at the waist to swallow a kid. There's also the empty girl's room, one presumably left behind by a dead sister. And lastly, it explains why he's scared, and more specifically why Afton wants him scared. He needs his kids to stay away from the animatronics. He doesn't want them getting too close because the last time one of his kids got too close to a robot, his daughter died. That's then why he sets up the nightmares, to scare both Mike and the crying child away from the animatronics from that point
why was
forward.
Mike so chill
Like the character encyclopedia outright suggests that
the
we
crying
play as the
child
crying
too.
child in FNAF 4. That's why he has a nanny cam following the
But
crying
Mike
child
was completely
everywhere,
fine
so
with
he can
going
keep
up
tabs
to
on his
the-
kids when they're out
the
of
one
his
on
sight.
stage
He
for
can't
the bite?
let another Elizabeth situation happen. The death of Elizabeth also gives William Afton extra motivation for killing. He's a grieving father. His daughter was taken away from him, so Charlie should die as well. He's lashing out
not
at the
how that's
world
supposed to
after
work.
losing his kids. And again, we know that at least one of his children had to have died prior to Charlie's death, based on the mound of dirt that we see in Midnight Motorist.
Could be a bush.
It also allows circus babies to open and close earlier in the timeline, which is how you wind up with Funtime Foxy appearing as Mangle in the FNAF 2 location. Basically, Elizabeth dying first has everything it needs to fit, except for the most important thing, the murder weapon. Why would Afton be building an animatronic with a giant claw in its stomach so early in the timeline?
Yeah, no,
At this point,
I don't...
he just has no motive. It just doesn't make sense prior to
I wonder what the answer is.
At this point in the story, he hasn't killed anyone. And we know for a fact that the missing children's
That's a
incident
very good
is
point.
1985. So
This one's not as clear cut as the
before
first one.
Any of those events just doesn't work.
Also, I think the
Hence why
movie
I
comes
placed
out
it where
soon.
I did in the narrative timeline. Afton's death here is also a bit tricky. We know that he returned to the FNAF 1 location to break down the original animatronics in order to harvest
He always
their
comes
remnant.
back.
We know that he melts down 5 things to become one thing. Candy Cadet makes that very clear. So the 5 things are the 5 endoskeletons from the various animatronics. That would be totally fine if it weren't for one huge
They
problem.
just like steal their life force
to the
or
pizzeria,
something?
Afton gets spring locked. So either the 5 becoming 1 starts in 1993, but then finishes 30 years later when he reemerges from the wall to add the last endoskeleton to his pile, or he's had himself some reason to return to the original location after harvesting all the stuff that he can. It's not ideal, but it's the one angle that makes the most sense. And with that, this next chapter comes to a close, thereby leaving us with 5 more games to cover.
5 games.
And another 40 plus years of
Good
Fazbear
Lord,
history to
that's a
recap.
lot.
Ooh, when you put it that
Video will
way,
be out
something
next
tells me
week.
that this
Patience
might
get a
be
day
within
early.
4 parts. Ugh, we'll see. Anyway,
I think it is
until
4
then,
parts.
my Faz heads, congratulations, you've made it through a massive upload. And hey, if you are still looking for
I'm
more
about to record
check out
an
the
hour-long
other
video.
5
I just
brand new
recorded a
awesome theories over on our new
30-plus minute,
sister
2
location
30-plus minute
style
videos.
theory. This thing literally launched today, so this is your chance to be one of the
I'm
first
sure it has
people
a
to
lot.
ever subscribe to this
I think I
brand
missed
new
it.
theory channel. Get yourself the bragging rights.
The fact that he had the
there
big
on
red
day
boots is
1
kind of nuts.
subscribing.
I'm sure he
I
made a
recommend
video about
checking
them.
out the video
I
on
can
Killer
promise you he
Wheels.
made a
I think that
video
one's
about the
the
big
best
red
starting
boots.
spot, and then
They're
you just
perfect for a
explore the
YouTube
channel
thumbnail
from
because they're
there.
red.
And again, if you like what you see, give it a subscribe. It has been a super fun journey so far, and we have ourselves some banger episodes coming up over the next couple weeks. Can you be allergic to color like we see on the show Wednesday? How many t-shirts does it take to stop a bullet? Basically,
Depends on the
things that
bullet.
you're gonna want to be
Like
there
I said,
for. So
5.7 by
thank you
28
so
will
much
go
for your
through a
support. Thank
lot
you for your
because it's armor
subscription.
penetrating.
Link is on screen right now. Go over there, check out the channel. Give
I don't
us
know, should I
your
react to
watch time.
the
Help
style
tell YouTube
theorist?
that this is a channel that is worthwhile and worth sharing across
I hope
the
it's doing well.
platform.
I
have
mean,
no
fashion
doubt
is such a
if you keep an
huge
open
thing,
mind,
and everybody's
you're gonna
trying to
love what you see.
learn.
And as always, my friends, remember, it's all just a theory.
A game
theory. Give me a week or 2 to recover from this launch, and then we'll finally finish this FNAF theory up.
That is completely understandable. Then we have Burn Them All, which is when the entire place got burned to the ground and Afton somehow survived. That video will be out next week. I should be streaming today playing some Pokemon Heart Gold, my Nuzlocke. First playthrough of ever playing Pokemon Heart Gold. And I'm doing a Nuzlocke, and I'm streaming it on Wednesdays from 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And last week, absolute tragedy struck. So you do not want to miss the next one and the FNAF videos and all of that fun stuff. I really hope you've been enjoying these videos. It's been quite the ride. It's been going on for well over a year at this point, and we're getting closer and closer to the end. Let me know. I'm definitely going to keep the game theory videos. Like, I think there's Minecraft game theory videos I need to do. That style theory thing seems really, really interesting personally, in my opinion. But this is a great video. I look forward to watching more of the timeline. I look forward to reading your comments, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. But until next video, take care, and kitty music.
We were playing